Hello, this is Tiffany. I am in my studio apartment. It is a cloudy day. Feels like a storm's coming in. And I just wrote this piece. My energy has been all over the place, but I'm glad that I finally sat down to write this piece that's been in my system for a while. All right, let's get into it. This piece is titled How Music Competition Shaped My Internalized Supremacy. The high of winning feels so good. At the top is a photo of me smiling. I'm probably around 15 or 16, and I'm wearing these Y2K glasses and I have a choker on. And I think I was probably at some Christian summer camp. Okay, let's get into the text. Look at me there. I was probably around 16 in the early 2000s, right at the start of an iconic era, both personally and contextually. It's such an interesting experience looking at photos of my high school days because I spend so much more time with my inner child who is under 10 years old. When I look at this photo, I remember how self conscious I was and how my music practice was my whole life, besides for church. I lived and breathed the satisfaction that came from performing and killing it. The ability to look fear in the eye and spit in its face was a high like no other. And then there's another photo of me when I was probably a toddler. I think I'm definitely younger than 5, and I'm in my childhood home playing on my childhood piano. I started piano when I was 5 years old. Sweet little baby. That's me at my childhood home piano where I've spent thousands of hours practicing. And by the time I was 10, I decided that it was my thing. It felt like something I could channel my emotion into and something I could practice autonomy with. In a household where I felt trapped in many ways, reading and music were two escapes that were fundamental to my existence. Looking back, I think it saved my life. Once I hit high school, I was accepted into the tutorage under a very respected piano teacher, Mrs. Liu, Lemay Liu. I haven't looked her up in decades, and I just found a CBS News feature on her from this April, and I actually linked it. She only invested in around 6 to 8 students at a time, and she put everything into them. I was over at her house multiple times a week and most weekends. One of my most favorite memories was eating ramen in her kitchen with the other young people in her studio. Yeah, I have so many memories, like really, really good memories of hanging out and feeling like I really belonged in that very exclusive group where I felt like I was doing something at such a high level that many other young people weren't. Okay, back to the text. Especially leading up to competitions, she would host recitals for family and friends at her beautiful house in the Oakland Hills every weekend. How it worked is that every student had to put money into the pot. I think it was around $10, which is not nothing. And at the end, she would rank every student from number 1 to number 8. You got the most money if you were near the top, and you lost money if you were near the bottom. Also, every semester, which I don't even remember how they cut up the year, but every semester, every student will learn the same piece so we could be fairly ranked as well as learn from each other's interpretations. And I kind of remember being it's kind of fucked up, but also it was kind of fun because we did talk about it and I did study pieces with friends, but we were competitors. So we were actively competing with our friends. And I feel like if you have been in other solo competitions like this, like you will understand that feeling. It's really weird to feel like your friends are also the people that you want to beat. And then I included this image of how Mrs. Liu would write down our lesson notes. For my individual lessons, next to each task, I would either win or lose X amount of money, dependent if I nailed it or not. Then at the end of the lesson, she would add up the plus or minus to see if I'm in the positives or negatives. Every lesson. Walking away from a lesson with a negative was so demoralizing. So I made sure I worked my ass off to get in the positives. And I also wanted to place at least middle or high at the recital that was every weekend. And I remember that I had one of my family friends was also part of the studio with me. And there were many weeks where she kept on being in the negatives, and it was shattering, shattering, especially if you can imagine as a teenager where you're just really not sure who you are. You're not really sure of very many things, but to have that, I don't know, beat into you, it was hard for the spirit. There was not only competition between me and my studio mates, but also competition with myself. And damn, it all really, really worked if the goal was to practice hard and perform at a high, high, high level. I remember the first time I won a gold medal, and it was for a Bach piece. Exhilarating. I remember hearing Mrs. Liu tell my parents that my performance was the best I've ever done. With all of the extreme pressures and all the nerves, I came out on top. And OMG, I loved that feeling. My self confidence grew immensely in my high school years. I felt like I had everything in me to excel with anything I put my mind to. The tangible ways of seeing the fruit of my labor was so satisfying. And there was this distinct moment where it really clicked for me about how to attain perfection in a piano piece. You had to practice with intention. It's not enough to play something over and over again. The mistakes cannot make its way into the repetition. The way to correct a mistake is to zoom in and play it correctly so that memory is embedded into my muscles. So technically, if I put in the time and correct practice technique, I will be able to perform anything beautifully and accurately by memory. Also, I'm going to save the story for another time of why my mom pulled me out of the piano studio. It's really unfortunate and sad. I just turned 36, and I've been reflecting a lot about my behavior in the present day around competition and internalized supremacy. For August through October, I made tangible business goals for myself. In the few weeks leading up to August, I noticed myself pushing myself to get one of the biggest goals for the 3 months done before it even starts. And then I did it. I felt this burst of energy to come up on top, a very familiar energy. I felt competitive with myself. I rarely feel that towards other people because I know it doesn't align with my values and what I believe. But with myself, it's way harder to catch and also seems harmless. What's wrong with self motivation and getting things done? So, what is supremacy? It is an increase of perceived value compared to its counterpart. It is a movement away from the thing itself and then derive value from hierarchy. Supremacy is innately power over or value over. Being conditioned as an Asian femme, I know this too well. Entering a room that is predominantly white with a few other folks of color, we, all the POCs, felt the tension. White people want us to be desperate for their attention and approval. There can't be two Asian people in the mostly white friend group. Only one token Asian person allowed. Model minority myth was like treading in mud growing up. The message was be thankful because if you behave, we won't treat you like Black people. The anti Black, pull yourself up by your bootstrap indoctrination was and is strong. White supremacy beckons and bets on the supremacy within Black and Brown communities, within our own communities, and between the communities. So clever because it's effective. If my worth is derived from being better than other people, I'm in deep trouble. At the same time, I can always find people I'm better than morally, materially, artistically, etc. And I can also always find people that are better than me in every category. So then what? I should keep on trying to climb the supremacy ladder? Yes, exactly. That's exactly what the colonizers, want. I reject having to place myself and my work on a top 50 list in order to have its value validated. I reject displacing the energy to other sources in order to trust that I and my work are good. I reject that we have to live our lives at the expense of Congolese, Sudanese, Palestinian, displaced poor, Black and Brown people's lives. I reject the whole damn thing. And yet, I catch myself with internalized supremacy. I find myself catching it. Why did I do that? Why do I have this compulsion of beating myself? And don't even get me started with internalized supremacy in relationship to learning about emotional intelligence and trauma related things. I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to one up. It is a disgrace if I try to do that. And I say that with much love to myself. I'm healing and reconditioning from the dopamine hit of winning. I am all for growth and expansion, but I know the difference. No one else can tell, but I know. That discerning is the integrity that grounds me and makes deep joy and fulfillment possible. I want fulfillment and satisfaction that supremacy can never give me. I hold young teenage Tiffany with so much tenderness. There was so much nuance to her journey. It was so fun to really excel at music with other young people. She was so delighted to discover how capable she can be. Her creativity, musicality, and determination are such superpowers. As an adult now, my job is to mature those desires and skills to match what we truly value. And there's a photo of me in front of the piano. I think that was when I was in high school. I also did community college and I was in a jazz band. Okay, so for my ending question, what does liberatory imagination spark in me today? Freedom from capitalism that yells in our ear that our little pleasures has to be at the cost of millions of lives. Fuck supremacy, all of it. So sick of billionaires forcing it down our throats. Liberatory imagination sparks rage in me. Witnessing Palestine feels so hopeless, even though my spirit knows there is always hope. And I want to share with you this really important campaign that I'm working with SAPA. They are the Sudanese American Physicians Association. And I want to invite you to join me in sharing the rebuild of Bahri Hospital in the capital of Sudan, in Khartoum. The forced starvation, the genocide, the lack of basic resources is unfathomable. We can't wrap our minds around 25 million people in Sudan. Please donate. All the information is here. Please donate. Please share. It is so important. I just think about how Sudan has gone through phase 5 of forced starvation, of famine 1 year ago. And just they don't have basic things like healthcare because starvation is happening. And so this project is really, really important. It's really big to restore a huge hospital in the capital of Sudan. So please join me. So I would also love you to support me. I am still trying to figure out how to materially stay alive and to get by. Please buy me a cup of coffee. You can Venmo me with the note "Happy Birthday" from Substack. All right, that is it for today, and more from me next time. Bye.